Again, thank you so much for being here this evening. I have 21 slides for you as we get ready to start the 2021 school year. So here we go. The first slide is just some upcoming dates for families. We know that these are really important back to school events. One thing that families are probably wondering is, when will I learn the name of my child's teacher and or get my schedule for the junior high? Those will be emailed to families on Thursday, August 12th. We are still going to have a meet and greet for Pritchett, Tripp, and Meridian, as well as open houses. We're going to talk a little bit at the end of the presentation about how that might look. We want to make sure we provide options for our families, but that will be on Monday, August 16th in the evening. And again, that same evening, we'll have our kindergarten open house. Tuesday, August 17th is our first half day of school for grades 1 through 8. And Wednesday, August 18th is our first day for all of our students, early childhood through 8th grade. So again, I just wanted to start with those dates. Everything we're talking about is getting us ready for these events. We cannot wait to welcome your children back to school and to have them in person and really to rebuild our in-person community. We're really, really excited. So let's talk about how we're going to do that safely. Okay, so we had some priorities that were really consistent for us in D102 during 2021, and those priorities have not changed. These are from the board all the way through our administration and our teaching staff. We hope that our families felt this as we made decisions over the past 16 months. Health and safety of our students and our staff is number one. We use that as a lens to guide our decision making. We felt like throughout the course of last year, and certainly this year as well, communication for partnership and engagement, which happens to be one of our district goals, it took on a whole new meaning during the pandemic, but it remained incredibly important. You are our partners. We understand we have the privilege of spending time with your children, which are your pride and joy. So hearing from you and having the exchange back and forth with families has been a top priority, and it will remain one. And then mental health and well-being. We know that last year was incredibly taxing on our parents, our teachers, and our students. And we know that the mental health and well-being of each individual impacts the entire ecosystem. We want kids to come to school feeling safe and secure. We want parents to feel safe, and we certainly want our staff to feel safe as well. Because when those things don't happen and there's stress and anxiety, it permeates. So we know it's really critical that we take care of every single person in our D102 community so that we can all work and learn together. So what have we been doing during this month? This is the late July update. We did have a nice update at the end of June, but what have we been doing during the month of July to get ready for the school year? We have a reopening page on our website. I hope that you've taken a look, but one of the things that's there is the updated guidance. The first big piece of guidance that really gave us an indication about what we should be doing for this school year came on July 9th. The same day, CDC came out with guidance, and then Illinois IDPH, the Illinois Department of Public Health, followed with similar guidance. So both of those pieces of information are on our website. I attend virtual meetings every single Wednesday at 8 a.m. with Lake County superintendents as well as the Lake County Health Department. Those meetings have not stopped. We've been monitoring updates and clarifications. Some came today, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. I collaborate frequently with the consortium superintendents to make sure that we serve the same broad community, so we work together and problem solve together. There were several webinars in July from Illinois Legal Counsel, some different firms, about how to interpret the guidance. I attended those. A handful of parents have reached out to me directly with questions and concerns, and we've talked through those. And then again, large group Zooms like this are really important to make sure we're delivering a common message. We had a large group Zoom with our staff on Friday, and again, we've got the Zoom this evening with over 200 parents online. And then we'll be preparing some additional August communication for staff and families that really makes it clear what the beginning of the school year will look like for everyone. So the July 9th guidance that came out, again, this was from CDC and IDPH, made it really, really clear that in-person learning is the priority. They also both talked about you've heard a lot about vaccination. The public health officials are in agreement that it is the best preventative strategy. But they also at that time were really talking about local control throughout the state of Illinois, certainly nationally, and then throughout our state. Different districts serve different communities with different values and priorities. Again, in D102, our top priority has been health and safety. Not saying that other districts haven't had that same priority, but we've been very clear that that has guided our decision making. So again, they strongly, both of these groups strongly encouraged vaccination. So again, this was the first part of the guidance that was shared. The next piece, a couple of major elements were that on July 9th, and I'm going to kind of walk you through a timeline of what has occurred during the month of July, but on July 9th, the quote was that masks should be worn indoors by all individuals who are not vaccinated. They also redefined social distancing to say that in a classroom, we need to maintain 3 feet of distancing between students. Previously, when the guidance was 6 feet, but they have adjusted that to 3 feet. But again, masks should be worn. This is the way that particular guidance was written early in July. So what does that look like for us? What does 3 feet look like in our schools? So the guidance does not talk about how desks need to be set up. So I just want to show you a couple of images. Both of these pictures are 3 feet apart in a Pritchett classroom. We have new desks. It's one of the ways that we've used some of our funding, our ESSER funds that have come forward, was to get single desks, again, to enhance health and safety. These are desks that can be reconfigured, moved around easily. But the top picture shows 3 feet with people sitting in rows. And really, you can see the room is quite full. We can get a whole classroom in there. But when you put desks and have students 3 feet apart, you sort of cover the room with desks. Another way to do 3 feet is to have 2 students facing each other and then 2 desks 3 feet away from those. It's still 3 feet. The kids across from each other and on side by side are 3 feet apart. If you remember, we do have desk shields that we purchased last year. We have 4,000 desk shields. So every desk in our school district will have a shield. They're not on the top desks in this photo, but they would be. So these are just 2 different ways that we can set up our rooms being 3 feet apart. Obviously, there are other configurations as well, but this is just to show. Certainly, we believe that the bottom picture feels much more like a classroom where kids are more collaborative and working together and seeing each other's faces. But again, these are options for us, and just wanted to show that we can get a full classroom of students into a room, and there are different ways to configure. For those of you that have students at TRIP, this is the same image with TRIP desks. TRIP has the goldfish shaped desk. So the top is 3 feet apart, the bottom is 3 feet across and on the side. Again, you see that there's more room to sort of navigate the classroom in the bottom picture. The next one is Meridian. We've got the single desks, which are a little bit larger at Meridian. And here are some different ways we could set up rooms, again, keeping that 3 feet of social distancing. These pictures do not have those desk shields, but we will be using the desk shields certainly as when we start the year. That'll be one of our mitigation strategies. Okay, so another piece that came out that I think is important and a lot of families have wondered about, this at the same time that CDC and IDPH came out with their guidance about really, again, this sort of urge to get kids back in school for in-person learning, and this move to 3 feet and the strong recommendation for mask wearing. Carmen Ayala, who is our Illinois State Superintendent, made a declaration about remote learning. And what she said is that remote instruction is only to be made available for students who have not received a vaccine, which obviously is every student under the age of 12. These kids are also under quarantine. So they have not received a vaccine and they're under quarantine. So that particular situation would warrant remote learning. But aside from that, obviously, if you were a D102 family last year, we were very preference-based. The majority of our families, more than half of our families, chose remote learning. And I'm very proud of how we were able to deliver that. and other families, again, chose in person. I'm also very proud of that. So last year, again, it was very preference-based. This year, remote learning would only be triggered for students who are not vaccinated, who are under quarantine. In April, late March, early April, we were told that remote learning would be an option for families who had medical needs, students with medical needs, or family members with medical needs. That, like many things during the pandemic, that particular piece of information evolved and changed. And this is where we stand currently with remote learning. So I want to show you sort of where we are with incidence rate. Incidence rate is a metric that lives on our website. It's a piece of information that we talk about at every single board meeting. So we were sitting in a fantastic place. Almost, I mean, anything under 7 is considered low incidence, a low transmission. So on July 11th, when this guidance was coming out, Lake County was sitting at 2.1. And you can see from the graph, again, we were in a much better place than we were in the winter. Fantastic numbers at that point. So going to kind of keep marching you through some things that happened in July. So like I said, there were some legal webinars that I attended and got some information. And these are 2 really important pieces of information that I want to share with families. One, you probably have heard that with that guidance came local control. Meaning that districts, again, based on the community that you serve, you can make local decisions about what your safety plan will be as you reopen school. Again, CDC and IDPH on July 9th were saying that if you're not vaccinated, you should wear a mask. That was part of it. And that you should be 3 feet apart in the classroom, at least 3 feet apart. One piece that the legal recommendation that they consistently shared with us was this idea of there are several layers of mitigation, right? Several strategies we do to keep our students and our staff safe. And they strongly recommend that you only remove 1 layer at a time. You don't just go from, doing several things to keep adults and students safe to not doing anything. It's really critical to take one piece away, evaluate the impact, watch the metrics, and then take another piece away. So this was sort of a guiding principle that I'll share with you in thinking about how we open our doors in D102. So again, removing 1 layer at a time. The other piece that they talked about was that, again, important to make known to our families that remote learning in 21-22 will not look like remote learning in 2021. Again, remote instruction is only going to be available at this time per the current guidance for those who are under quarantine and not vaccinated. And it only needs to be 5 hours a week. So that is significantly less. In D102, we never do just the minimum, but again, it's not a full school day. So finding that balance of what would the focus is going to be on in-person learning, and we will provide what we need to, but again, it will not be a full day of synchronous remote instruction and remote learning like we had last year. It might be a combination of some synchronous, some asynchronous. Those are things we'll be working on in August. But again, we do not anticipate using this very much because this is only for students who are under quarantine. So again, remote learning this year in this particular definition is not like remote learning that we experienced in 2021. Then on July 19th, after the July 9th information that came from CDC and from the Illinois Department of Public Health, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out and they recommended universal masking for everyone over the age of 2, regardless of vaccination status. Obviously, our most important population most of our kids are under 12. Obviously, we have some 7th and 8th graders that are over 12, but the vast majority of who we serve are young students who have not been able to get that layer of protection that comes with vaccination. So again, this was a statement from them on July 19th. On July 21st, numbers are starting to creep up a little bit. Sitting at 3.3 in Lake County, still good, still considered a period of low transmission, but again, the direction is starting to move up. It's not flat. On July 21st, which was just last Wednesday, the Lake County Health Department made clear because certain districts in Lake County, they're starting to roll out their plans what they anticipate mask wearing looking like. And people are sort of taking the word should and maybe perhaps having some different interpretations of that word. So the Lake County Health Department wanted us to know that when you read the word should from CDC and or the Illinois Department of Public Health, it means a duty or an obligation. So when they said that you should wear a mask if you're not vaccinated, it means we have a duty and an obligation to make sure that that occurs. It does not say you may wear a mask. So again, they wanted districts to be aware of what they believe, the way they believe we should be interpreting the word should. They also let us know that 92% of the cases in June were from unvaccinated individuals. Again, just a good data point. Another question that came up from someone, and I thought it was worth repeating here and sharing the answer. We know that from the data, the broad data, most students, most young people don't get very sick if they contract COVID, right? They are a population that overall, in general, is healthy. But what the health department wanted to make sure that we remembered is that any spread, even if it's spread between two kids who really don't get very sick, any amount of spread can and does lead to increased mutations. And mutations can increase just when there's a mutation, typically it's more infectious. The more infectious mutations, obviously you're hearing a lot about the Delta variant, which is a more infectious, it's a variant of COVID and it's more infectious. The more mutations that occur, the more likely that there'll be more that could potentially break through vaccination. We're working really hard as a pandemic, as a nation, to move ourselves through and out of this pandemic. We don't want to slow it down by moving backwards, and certainly having more variants and more mutations can create more health risks and also can create, lengthen what has already been a very, very long and tiresome pandemic for all of us as we've weathered this storm together. So again, that's part of the reason why we want to make sure kids aren't spreading to kids. It's bigger than just the impact on the individual children, which of course we don't want them to get sick either. Then on July 22nd, Chicago Public Schools, which obviously is a very large school district, they followed suit with the American Academy of Pediatrics. And they said that masks will be worn. They did not say that masks should be worn. They said that they will be worn by everyone, adults and children, regardless of vaccination status. And the rate continues to go up. As of July 25th, now we're sitting at 4.55. So again, we're still in a good place, but we are on a slight uptick. And then today, I'm so glad that we had an update today as I'm meeting with you tonight. Today, the CDC came out and reversed themselves and said that they believe that everyone in a school, regardless of vaccination status, should wear a mask. They're still using the word should, but again, that means duty and obligation. But when they first came out, when they talked about universal masking, that you should wear a mask, they were really making a delineation between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. Now they're saying what the American Academy of Pediatrics has said and what CPS has done. And they're saying that regardless of vaccination status, you should wear a mask. And then later this afternoon, just about 2 hours ago, Illinois fully aligned with that. IDPH came out with a statement concurring and agreeing with the CDC, saying that that they believe that people should wear masks. So as far as where we are, we've been having conversations about reopening all summer with our Board of Education, really watching the science. And again, you should be so grateful that you have a board that cares so deeply about the health and safety of the people who work in the school district, as well as all the children that attend our schools. So we had already made a decision that we wanted to start the year with universal masking. We feel like we have been sort of beating the drum of doing everything possible to keep our constituents safe. So we were planning to start the year. And again, with all the updates that have come, it just reinforces that our direction was really the right one. So what we would like to do as a district is to start with that best protection. Universal masking for all, which was recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, but is now also recommended by CDC and the IDPH. We want to model for our young learners that we're all in this together. We're all wearing a mask. We want to avoid, who's vaccinated and who's not at the junior high by separating. And again, that was something districts that were going to allow the unvaccinated to start without a mask. They were going to have to find ways to monitor who's vaccinated and who's not. Another really key piece of this, which I underline because I just think it's absolutely critical. Masking drastically reduces transmission and the need to quarantine. We do not want our young ones to come to school. And, again, with the way the numbers are going, even just a slight uptick, if we've got any transmission, we do not want to be sending students home to have to quarantine. We don't want to break the flow. We want to engage them in their new classroom community. And like I said, remote learning this year is not going to look like it did last year. So we really want to keep our kids in school. We want to do everything possible to not have them quarantine and disrupt their learning and disrupt the home life and the work life of parents, where you get a call and find out you need to be home for 2 weeks because your 6-year-old is under quarantine. That's incredibly stressful for parents. It's also, it's sad for kids if everyone else is in school and they're at home. So again, by wearing masks and everyone wearing masks, we really reduce that. During this time, we can also gather proof of vaccination and really look at, there will come a time. All of this is temporary. We do know there will come a time that masks will come off. So we'll gather proof of vaccination. Once that begins for under 12, when we were starting our planning in June and July, we were very hopeful that vaccination for under 12 was going to begin in late August or September. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen until December or January. Maybe it'll be sooner. But once that begins, as long as transmission is at an acceptable rate, of course, we'll continue to follow the guidance. If the guidance still says that everyone should stay masked, we're going to stay masked. But this would be a potential process of unmasking. If the numbers are low, we haven't had transmission, and we're starting to get shots in arms of our kids under 12, then we can talk about unmasking the fully vaccinated. And then the final step would be when everyone has had access to vaccination and everyone is fully vaccinated. As long as the metrics are good, we can talk about, at that point, do we create some sort of a choice? But again, 2 and 3 are really subject to what's happening with transmission and what are the public health experts telling us we should be doing. We're going to keep listening to them. I feel like I'm kind of becoming a public health expert, but I am an educator first and foremost. So I will show deference to the Lake County Health Department, the CDC, and the Illinois Department of Public Health, and let them guide us. And we'll share all that with our Board of Education, our faculty, and our parents. So this is where we're at today. We really are extremely excited. This is just a little acronym for you. We believe it is going to be a nice year. What we mean by that is we want to start 2021-22 by nurturing inclusion, community, and engagement. We want to have inclusion where we're not separating our vaccinated and unvaccinated. We are all D102 students. We want to all show up the same way as a community, following health and safety protocols to, again, protect each other. And really all be in this together with our shields and our masks, showing up together to keep everybody healthy and safe. And we want to focus on in-person, academic, social, and emotional learning, and really minimize that need to quarantine. If we work together, we can do this. I know we can. Again, for us, the first layer that we are removing, I should show you that again. For us, the first layer that's coming off is 6 feet of distancing. We are one of the few districts that didn't give on that last spring. We were able to maintain our in-person learning for kids that wanted to come back and keep them 6 feet apart. So the first change for us is to go from 6 feet to 3 feet, but everything else is staying intact. Again, wearing those masks. And then eventually in time, we know that we hope we can unmask the vaccinated. So again, we'll just keep marching through. I would anticipate that about every 6 weeks, we'll provide an update of where we are, if we've got news on vaccination, any new public health guidance. All of that will happen. So that first 6-week mark would be the end of September. The next one would be the middle of October. But I am very confident that for at least the first 6 weeks and probably the first 12, maybe more, we want everyone to show up with a mask. We just feel like it's so important. It will drastically minimize quarantine, and we're all doing our part to keep our kiddos safe. We know this is going to be disappointing for some people who vaccinated their kids, for some staff who've been vaccinated. But again, we look at that as, the flip of at least we can all be back together, we can all be in school, and we can stay in school. And so that's, again, we look at the benefit of that and the benefit of health and safety as looking at wearing a mask, which we've all learned to do. And certainly we'll give ample mask breaks. We'll take that masks off when kids are outside. They will have access to things last year that were more restricted. They will have snack. We will use lockers. The 3 feet of distancing really allows us to do a lot more. They will have specials. They will have a full day. All the things that we were sort of working towards, all of those are happening this year. So I feel really good about all the things our kids are going to be able to engage in, but we're going to do it safely with masks. So with that, and my nice, I have one question that's really important. And again, this is a partnership. It's two-way. One of the questions that I really want your feedback on, one thing we heard last year was that having some virtual opportunities for families in parent-teacher conferences, meet and greet and open house. We did hear from some families that was fabulous. They really, really liked it. So my question for you with meet and greet and open house, we are going to have a virtual option. We are going to make sure that there is an opportunity for Zoom, an opportunity for a video. So for sure, we're going to make sure that for our families who don't want to come in, our parents who don't want to come in, you're going to get the content. You're going to be able to meet your teacher and you're going to be able to get that information. But my question to you, and I have to figure out, Mr. Hoover, you have to help me figure out how to get this. I want to know from our families, how important is it that we have a hybrid, that there's also an in-person option for meet and greet and open house? Because these events are for our families. Again, we are offering virtual. That's a given. The question is, do we need to offer both as we launch the year? Do we want an in-person sort of structured meet and greet with masks? And maybe, again, maybe a more structured open house with a separate Zoom opportunity or video? Or is it better just to start virtual, given where we're at? So Mr. Hoover, what's your suggestion for how I have people? Do they throw their answer in the chat? Since we have 245 on here, I would love to just get your opinion if you feel strongly that we should offer both or just virtual.
Yeah, so I think if you just want to send your answer to me in the chat, that'll be perfect. And then we'll do a Google form next week and a D10 Tuesday also.
Okay, that's great. So again, virtual is a given. We're doing it. We just want to know how important it is, for some people to come in person. And again, open houses, we're going to keep following where things go in July and August. We reserve the right to pull back, given the fact that that would be a large group. We're talking about hundreds of adults potentially coming into the building. Of course, we'd ask people to mask. But if the metrics would change and we would need to move to a full virtual, we would do that if the metrics warranted it. But right now, with where things are, I think we still would have the option of doing a hybrid. And we just want to know if that's something that's important to our families.